Alright guys, so recently I did a review on Outriders. I did a beta video as well, and I pretty much didn't have much to say between the two. That's because I had only played a small bit of the game. If you haven't watched either of those two videos, I'll put a card up to the most recent one right now. And again, if you did watch it and just need a refresher of sorts, essentially just said that the game was generic and boring and just a copy of Destiny, then Division 2 and all of that. And so I've finished the game now, and well, a lot of the stuff that I said I still feel slightly the same about. There's a lot of stuff that I feel differently about, so I figured I'd make another video and go through it all over again now that I've played the full 30 whatever hours of the game. So first, let me explain to you why I absolutely hated the game in the review and beta review that I did. So when I made my review and within the beta, I'd gotten through the entire first region, and typically the way games work is they give you a really strong start, and then, it drags towards the middle, a really strong middle, and then it drags towards the end, and then a really, really strong end, and then it concludes, right? That's how a lot of games work, story games at least, movies follow the same thing, and so that's how I assumed this game was going to be. So if this was their strong open, then I was like, okay, I'm not going to like this game at all, because the entire first region, in my opinion, which is about the first 5 hours, 6 hours of the game, depending on what side missions and all that stuff that you do, I absolutely hate. I find it boring. It is very generic. The loot sucks. The enemies aren't interesting. There's not a lot of variety, right? They introduce a boss, but again, that's at the very end. So aside from that, it's really boring, that whole first area. But after that, it drastically changes, and that's why I wanted to make another video. Now, don't get me wrong, it's like every looter shooter ever, right? You shoot through these 50 waves of enemies that are insane bullet sponges for 10 minutes to get a piece of loot that's worse than you already have, until you get to the boss to get a legendary piece of loot that is 10, points better than you have to remod, and then you get a piece of loot on the next mission that's better, and you spend all that time modding for no reason. You know how it is with these types of games. But what Outriders does really well, I almost just call this game Skylanders for some reason, but what it does really well is the enemy variety, right? Essentially, it breaks down into two factions, I guess, of enemies, right? There's people, and then there's monsters or bugs, whatever you want to call them, right? And so the people, they're not too bad as long as you don't get too many bosses on you. There's a good variety there. They have, the regular guys, the snipers, the heavies, the minigun, the elementals, all types of stuff. I'm sure I'm forgetting. They have like the ghost-looking dude, and then all the different bosses that are humans that you come across, right? Just some good variety there. And again, unless you get absolutely cornered by a bunch of bosses, they're not too hard, even on the highest world tier. Now, that being said, the non-human enemies are literally the hardest thing I have ever had to play in recent memory. I can't remember something that I struggled with more than these non-human enemies, right? They have the typical crawler-type zombie guys, right? They're not a problem. But there's flying ranged enemies, there's ground ranged enemies, there's charging enemies, there's so many. And, with humans, they take cover, they stay relatively far away, you can take cover. With the monster enemies, they'll just rush you. They're very hard, and while we're on that topic, that is one of the things that I like about this game, and I think makes it a lot better than some of the other games in this area, and that's if you put it on the highest world tier, whatever you unlock. World tier is difficulty, if you don't know that. But if you just keep it updated with whatever you've unlocked, that highest difficulty, the game can be pretty hard. You'll have to play bosses multiple times. And so that was something that I really liked, that it stayed difficult the entire game. You didn't just get insanely overpowered even at the very end. So essentially what I'm trying to get at, right, is this game just gets better the further you go, and it is repetitive in a sense. Like every looter shooter, you are doing the same thing, just fighting waves of enemies in an arena to get better loot over and over again, right? The story isn't that great, the cutscenes are insanely annoying, so it's really just the concept of getting new loot and upgrading it, and I think that's really what's interesting here. Their modding menu is done, I don't want to say well, but extensively. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. Essentially, different rarities of guns come with different levels of mods, and you can put different numbers of mods. Same thing with armor. But there's so many mods that it's overwhelming, right? There's +3 health when you reload, +3 health when you roll, +3 damage when you roll, +3 health when you vault, +3 health behind cover, plus ice ability, plus lightning ability, plus toxic ability, plus fire ability. All these trillions of different mods that you can do and loadouts that you can work together. So that's really cool if you like the customization aspect of it. But in my opinion, they get a favorites tab. So once you find those mods that you like, you can just go into that favorites tab and just quick equip them instead of having to find them through this annoyingly slow and long menu every time. And speaking of the menus, oh boy, let's talk about it. So there's a larger map and then a smaller individual map for each region, right? There's 17 regions or destinations, whatever you want to call them, throughout the game. You're traveling in your truck to these new regions. That's the whole premise of the game, right? And so that map, the large overarching map, is not complicated. It is a straight line. You just click on the next one. It's very simple, right? No problem with it. My problem is with the individual region map. Once you've loaded in, you're not fast traveling to a new area. You're in the region you want to be in. You're trying to navigate this open world type area, right? One, where am I on this map? Right? So, if it might take you a second to figure it out, but I'm that white glowing area. Alright? Two, which way am I facing? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. So if I want to go north to that beast marker in that book mission up there, right? I have no clue which way that is from where I am standing. If I want to go east to that main mission, I don't know where that is from where I am standing. And the worst part is they have this little marker guidance system. You press up on the D-pad, it shows you where to go, right? That doesn't even work half the time. You press it, and it just brings you to a dead end. So you're literally lost 90% of the time if you're not doing just running main missions and just going straight. If you try to go off the path the tiniest bit, you get lost. So if you're like me, just getting lost constantly, this map sucks. I mean, it can't just be me, right? This map's terrible. And so essentially, if I wanted to know where I was going, I would have to run all the way west to the camp. Firstly, figure out which way is west, alright, to the camp, and then hug a wall from the camp until I reach where I want to go. Right? And this isn't something that just happened once, or twice, or even 5 times. Every single time I tried to do a side mission, I'm pretty sure I got lost. And it doesn't help that it's not really open world in the sense like Destiny, where you just go where you want to go, and that's it, you're just there, you start the mission, at least with open world activities and side missions and all of that stuff. With this game, you travel all the way to where you're going, to go through a cutscene, to go to a new area. So, it's rough. The map sucks. That's definitely the worst part of the game. So if we wanted to break it down to an easy pros and cons list, just to, finish out Outriders, right? The pros is it drops you a lot of loot. I didn't talk about that too much, but it's just dropping you stuff left and right. Now, it's not going to be good, but you can dismantle it and sell it and all that stuff. Pretty much any non-level 1 enemy you're killing, you're getting loot. Even that guy, level 1 enemy, loot. Right, so they drop you stuff all the time. So that's positive, right? Difficulty, I don't like it easy, right? I mean, I don't want it to be unfairly difficult, but, I actually had to try at some point, so I like that. That's another pro. Alright, I guess technically if you wanted to replay this game, you could count the 4 different classes. I was kind of hoping they'd do something where once you max out a class, you'd be able to choose another one, and it would just, you'd still have all of your gear and stuff, so you'd be able to at least have the levels and the gear to survive, but you just restart a new class, because there are some cool abilities, and according to a lot of people, I chose the worst class, Pyromancer, which, how am I supposed to know that? I definitely think the teleporting, the Trickster class, whatever that is, the one that's next to Pyromancer, everything that I've seen, that's definitely the coolest class in the game, but every class has at least one cool ability, right? And so those are the pros. The game does other stuff well, like bosses and all of that stuff, but that's not unique to this game. I kind of want to just touch on the stuff that's unique to Outriders, right? You can fight good bosses in Destiny and all of that stuff. And so the cons, number 1 is the map. I literally got pissed off just making this video thinking about the map, because it's annoying. It's terrible. It's so bad. But besides the map, another bad thing was the launch state of the game. Right, it ran bad. The beginning of the game is bad. Connection issues, all that stuff. There's bugs here and there. But aside from that, it's repetitive and it's long. We skipping all of the cutscenes. I think beat it in 27.5 hours. And the cutscenes, that's the other con. The cutscenes are terrible, right? I talked about this in my beta video. One, they're so weird, right? They're just everywhere. They don't need them, right? If we can go through these loading screens in a second and a half on a Series X, these cutscenes can't be this bad, right? They're just weird. The camera angles are weird. They're super shaky. I said this in my beta video. It feels like someone's hand holding a camera during a mortar strike, just filming this, right? It's awful. And we ended up just skipping them all because they're unbearable. The story sucks. There's no reason to care or play it. Just shoot the enemies, get better loot. The loot does get cool eventually. But that's really all I have for Outriders. Now, originally when I did my beta video, I don't know if I gave the game a number, because that was technically like a first impressions type video. But, so was my review in a sense, because I only made it through the first region. And I want to say I put this game at like a 4 or 5. I don't know if I actually vocalized that in the video, but that's what I was thinking in my head when I was making the video. Now, I'd say this game is a good 7. It could definitely be an 8 or a 9. It has a solid endgame, it has bosses, it's difficult, it has a bunch of cool loot, all that stuff. But just, like I said, the map, just really the map, like, man, it's bad. But, yeah, again, that is depending on what you paid for the game, right? If you paid $60 for this, it's not a 7, it's like a 5, right? It's pretty generic for a $60 game. Now, if you got it off Game Pass, like everybody else, like all the smart people, then it's a 7, right? But that's just me. I got it off Game Pass. I enjoyed my time with it. I haven't played a looter shooter in a while. But again, if you're playing like Destiny and The Division and all that stuff like daily still, then you're probably not going to enjoy this. But that's just me. You guys let me know what you think of the game, and I'll see you on the next one.